Okay, what's up? Somebody in the video comments, Dingo, I think his name was, had asked about standing posture and breathing tips. So I haven't done a video in a while. I figured, okay, we'll do a request video. So, unfortunately, there's a few disconnects between how someone should look anatomically, like, for fitness, as opposed to how you should look when you're doing martial arts and Tai Chi. And it takes just start with the understanding that the pooch belly, that you need to allow all this junk to hang out and actually make yourself look like you have a beer gut when you're doing these exercises. Okay? So when I go into normal posture mode, right, and I stand up straight, you're not really gonna see much. But then once I relax my knees, bring up my head, dip my pelvis, and allow those anterior and posterior oblique slings to release, you're going to see this pooch. And this is important for the training. It looks terrible, but in order to do this training correctly, you need to have this. You need to release all the joints, let these slings relax, and then let the pooch happen. Okay? Become one with the pooch. So it may look like you have a beer gut, and it's necessary. So aside from that, I'm sure you've seen 1,000 videos where people have all the alignments, this and that. We're going to go over the very fundamental things that I think you should have. First is, when you're breathing, you want to feel the air go into the sinus cavity, and you want to actually, people consider the third eye, but you want to feel the air go there and concentrate, feel it go there. Obviously the tongue should be in the roof of the mouth. I'm assuming you guys know all these basics. So the tongue on the roof of the mouth, and when you breathe in, you want to make sure that you feel the air go through the sinus cavity. Okay? Track the air down to lower down chin. So we want to think of the bucket of the pelvis as a battery. And as you breathe in, you clean the air with the sinus, you bring energy to the upper dantian. It travels through the heart and then goes into the lower. This is where you store the energy. Okay? You want to actually imagine yourself storing like light. Whatever school you're into, but it's giving you a general idea. So the in-breath, clean through here, bring it down the linea alba, store it in the gut, go under the perineum, and at this point you should be full. So you're literally thinking, here's a point, I'm breathing here, as I'm breathing it down, it gets into my dantian, and then once it gets to the perineum, where, prostate area, whatever you want to call it, that's where I'm full, and that's like that middle point. And from here, that's when the out-breath comes in, and now I'm going to breathe up my spine, but over my head. So you want to get the sensation of breathing over your head. So. Okay? Now, when you do this correctly, you should feel that you're breathing from the entire loop, the intestinal band, the kidneys, liver, spleen. Okay? This is where you're breathing this way, in all directions. So you can do this way, you can do this way as a way to understand that you're actually breathing to your kidneys. Okay? Now, an old man in Chinatown, they taught me this. There's different kinds of iron body. And I learned iron body, from doing hardstyle karate, where you just tightened everything up and just kept getting hit, and getting hit, and getting hit, and getting hit, and getting hit, constantly over and over again until your body just learns to deal with that. In their method, he would make it itself it felt like punching rubber. So he would breathe in, and I haven't had the time to train it to that level, but I can do it to a low level. It feels like you're hitting a tire. So it's a different type of iron body. I know this conversation is a little disjointed, but it's a last minute video, it's best I can do for you. Okay? So let's see if we can just review. When you're breathing, always breathe in through your nose, tongue through the mouth, breathe through the sinus cavity, clean it out, concentrate on that third eye area. Feel the air go through, follow it down to the linea alba. When it gets about to turn over underneath your legs, that's when the whole bucket of the pelvis should be full in all directions. Okay? As you breathe out, you want to concentrate and follow the air up your spine, the sensation of the air traveling up your spine and over your head. Okay? In singing, a falsetto is normally how this is done. You would sing over your head, like a resonance happens. Now, does it matter if it's really happening? No, because visualization leads to actualization. By attempting to do these magical, sensations and try to experience them, your body will try to manifest that and create neural links and pathways and all kinds of weird stuff. So the visualization is very important. So now on another level, when I was doing Qigong, the way I was taught was a lot of light work, where you would be practicing, aside with the Buddha's chanting and stuff, there was actual specific light work where you would breathe air. You breathe air but visualize it as light. And it always starts with the circulation, but later on it becomes where you're breathing through your skin. So as you breathe, and this will happen if you do this or you do it the Buddhist chanting, you do it properly, this happens naturally, where you start to feel as if your skin is breathing in and out. So that's going to bring us to how I would apply this to standing posture. So if you think of your bones as a rubber hose, a balloon, kind of a wacky inflatable tube man. Once you have this first circulation down, you want to now make that the foundation and start to create this bubble, balloon effect in your body. So now I have this 70% full all the time, where this bone is full with air. Okay, it's actually filled with air. Is it literally filled with air? Actually, yes, because by oxygenating the blood and getting, the red and white blood cells and all the other crap, you're actually putting air in your bones. The bone marrow is where a lot of oxygenation and all this other cool shit happens in the body. So, going back to the standing posture, you want to first start with the proper breathing, and then once you feel comfortable, a couple of repetitions of the breath, and you can follow that breath, you now want to start to fill up the bones. Okay? So I'm not going to just do that cycle. That cycle becomes automatic. I'm not thinking about this anymore. Now I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to expand by breathing in, and I'm going to allow myself to contract by breathing out. And what happens is that the oblique slings being released creates a bellow system, like you ever seen they have the bag and it pushes the air into the fire? That's kind of what's happening here. But it's happening in the entire bone structure. Okay? And when you see it, you shouldn't see it, but I have to show it to you in a way that makes sense. So, okay? Now, obviously, I wouldn't be making noise breathing, but I want you to be able to recognize what's happening, because otherwise, like my master said to me, why don't you ever see any movies about Buddhist monks? Who the hell wants to see somebody sit and do nothing? Yeah? So, the grain of salt here. So, when I breathe in, I want to feel, we're talking about a quarter of an inch. It's such a small contraction and expansion, but it's an expansion and it's compression and decompression. When I say compression, I mean from the inside compressing my entire structure in all directions outward, and then releasing that air creates a decompression effect. Okay? So this is something because I've had so many different Tai Chi instructors that I piece together the information. I have different views in the subject, and I don't believe that any one of them is correct. I just think that there's different variations. So some schools, they teach, that this is an in-breath, this is an out-breath. Some teach this is an out-breath, this is an in-breath. And they're both correct. Some schools teach don't worry about your breathing at all. It's correct also. And they're all correct. And the Western mind has a trouble understanding that two truths can exist simultaneously, both be correct, as long as they work. As long as they get the desired effect and you have a reason why you're doing it. Okay? They're both correct. So, going back to standing posture, after you have the basic breath cycle and you have this expand contract thing, why are you doing it? So, I grew up in a very, very violent place. I had very violent jobs. I've dealt with CPTSD and all kinds of, I've been through a lot of stuff. For me, martial arts was to protect people, right? It was my whole, I wanted to be a superhero. So for me, I started in Guardian Angels. I was 14. I lied about my age, and I was tackling fucking drug dealers in the middle of Times Square for fun. Now, so that's the kind of person I was. So for me, martial arts had a different effect. When I do Tai Chi, there was no internet, and it wasn't about health. William C.C. Chen's school, they were still boxing back then, and they were hitting each other. It was a different world from what you see on the internet. And then when I went to Chinatown, and I was, thank the gods that they let me into their little circles in the party. The masters there took me under their wing and taught me a lot of things, and it's not what I was ever shown anywhere else. So it's hard for me to try to share a lot of stuff, because most people don't understand, and a lot of people that talk on the internet, they've been punched in the face before. So it's hard. Anyway, so going back to, you have your structure, fine. You do your breathing cycle, fine. You have your light body, fine. Okay? And now you're doing expansion contraction. Now you can do it in either direction. My opinion, it's much more efficient to do this where whenever you're expanding, you're breathing out. And what's going to happen is it's going to thin the line. It's going to make the air feel compressed. The difference is that you have to remember that you're not breathing out. In martial arts, the way I was taught, doing karate for instance, you breathe in, and it's a quick quarter-second breath in, and now you're going to be breathing out for a whole minute. Okay, so all my techniques, as many as I can, are on that out breath. And this is compressing the bone marrow and all this in a different kind of way. It's, in my opinion, efficient, and it allows you to do a lot of damage because it creates a very narrow pathway in the power output. I'm not saying this is the only way. This is what, in my 30-something years of practicing, this is what I believe to be the best thing. Okay? For me. For me. So, now you're doing the posture. Are we doing it for health? Then you just do the exact same breath routines. These are universal, things. The tongue on the top of the mouth, teeth closed to create this loop, neurological link. Opens the sinuses, whatever. Breathe through the sinus. Try to avoid breathing through the mouth whenever possible. Things like that. Posture, yada yada. You have a million YouTube videos for that. But here's the problem with intent. Why are you doing this posture? So, the tree pose posture, if you're doing it for Qigong, then you have to say, well, there's a magnetic line, there's an electrical line, right? The magnetic will be this loop on the outside of the body, okay? So if you use a pendulum, if anybody's seen how pendulums work, where you hold a pendulum and you say yes or no, you can use a pendulum to learn how to play with this magnetic electric thing. Electric was just straight, okay? So there's only two things that there is. So if you're playing with that, then you can just play with the feeling of those energies. Does it matter if they're real or not? No, because the health benefit is obvious, and it's the scientific studies. So you want to call it placebo effect? It doesn't matter. It's very good for your health. But if you're not, the problem with Tai Chi now is that these people do not fight. They never get a hard style. And you see, I'm gonna say right now, any of the good Tai Chi players, or the guys who could do all the fancy stuff, they all came from a hard style first. They all were training hard styles. They were all training weapons. They didn't come with this, Chen Manching nonsense where they only do the soft form, blah, 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 I'm going to fight the whole world. And then it doesn't make sense. None of those people did that, okay? And anybody who says, oh, the form is useless, it's nonsense, because you internalize form, you internalize handsets. You can't get away from that. So going back to the posture, when you're doing these postures, why? Okay? Does this make sense in a martial arts setting? Not really. I mean, it can if you're thinking elbow, right, or bridge, but in this loop, it's not really a martial thing as much. It can be, but just by changing the intent, it's just a small change of intent. I'm coming for you, okay? I'm thinking you're trying to hit me. I'm gonna take that shot and I'm gonna tear your head off. That's the idea in the head, in the mind, because when you're a good person, you don't want to fight, you don't like violence. So you have to constantly drill into your head, using imagination that someone's trying to attack you. You're going to block it and you're going to go after them. You know, you have to constantly repeat this. In traditional martial, you have one-step attacks. You know, one guy's this, and people are like, oh, that's not realistic. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's supposed to give your subconscious an association of there's a person coming at me, and I have to try to hit them. I don't want to do that, okay? And I have to be able to target a small piece. That's all it is. It's target training and mental association. It's supposed to be a step ladder up to free sparring and, you know, situational drills, right? Where you can go like we used to do elevator drills and hallway drills, but it's a stage, okay? So you need to practice in context. So you're doing, the guy who asked the question said he was doing Yang style Wing Chun. In my opinion, Yang style Wing Chun is the same thing. Okay, Wing Chun is like a little sister. It's a part that's been taken from the Yang style, in my opinion. Okay, because they all come from Mike Crane and Eight Immortals Five Ancestors. They're all the same stuff. The body only moves some different ways. When the traditional variants of Yang style that I learned, when you sit up for ward off, okay, you're sitting up for ward off. It really looks like a bong style. Okay, when you come up, it really looks like a tan style to me. Okay. So that's how I apply it. I mean, I did a little bit of Wing Chun, you know what I mean? But I did traditional Korean karate, you know, the predecessor Taekwondo. And when you learn the handsets in that, and then you mix them together, it looks a lot like Wing Chun when you know how to use it. But it's not practiced that way. So there's a similarity. But why am I saying? Because any of these postures can be a standing posture, and you can do the same breath work and the same intent. What's happening here? This is basically a Philly show, right? Ward off. Okay? Now, there's so many variations of ward off. The one I practice, okay, there's so many different variations. Some people will tell you not to lean. Well, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a specific intent that works for you, that you have pressure tested, or you try to pressure test to make sure it works, and if it doesn't work under the pressure, you fix it. And this is a part of the reason why my forms look so different, because I have 3 versions of the Yang form that I do. And the reason for that is because of every single push hands, every single fight, every single sparring match I've ever got into, I did something that didn't work, or I felt I could have made better. I went back to my form and I put it back in the form, because the form is a notebook. The form is just it's a gym. It's making your body into a gym so you can work out, and it's a notebook that you can pass on a workout set to other people. Okay, how you apply that workout set in real life is going to be different for every person. So when you're talking about, for instance, doing a deadlift, right? Doing a deadlift, how I'm going to use a deadlift in real life is not going to be the same I would do it in a gym with a straight bar. But the mechanics are the same, right? But if I go to pick up this rock and I go do a deadlift, I'm going to not be exactly like I'm doing it in the gym. So that's the idea about the form thing. So I digress. Going back to the standing posture, it's after you have the basic breathing. I'm assuming all of you guys know about rooting and alignments. You really got to worry about the intent. Why am I doing this? Okay? Is it just for my energy? Okay, fine. Then sit in the sun, practice your breathing, feel the light go into your body, and work on the qigong aspect. If you're doing it for fighting, I would say 30% should be getting the alignment and the air and the light and all this light body stuff. But 70% should be like, I'm gonna rip your fucking head off. That's my opinion. You know, because what's the point of doing a martial art if there's no martial intent? Like, you know what I mean? And the idea is that, no, you don't want to be violent and be outwardly aggressive, but there is evil in the world. There are bad people in the world that do bad things. You can't defend yourself against bad people with nice words, okay? You're not going to defend yourself against a carjacking with nice words. You're not going to defend yourself against somebody who wants to like beat your head in with, oh, I'm going to use no force. Like, it doesn't work, bro. It doesn't work. You know when that works and how I make it look like that? Because I have sparred thousands of hours, okay? And I'm not bullshitting you. I've been in 100 street fights, but by the time I was 14, I was in 100 street fights. I am not exaggerating, okay? I look white and I'm Hispanic. So I lived in New York on the borderline, okay, of Honduras, where my grandma was in East New York in a very black neighborhood, and my mother was in Ozone Park, which was not, okay? So now I'm the son of a single fucking parent, right? And in one neighborhood I'm a white boy, in the other neighborhood they call me a spick. So everywhere I went, I had a fight. Okay, it's ridiculous. So my mentality and of how I deal with pressure is different because if people can't comprehend. I've been hit with bottles and bats and been stabbed and shot at and hit baseball bats and like gang fights. And I've seen everything. So you combine real violence and abuse with actual training and sparring and constant sparring, constant. The similar to Kyokushin. So it's like my teenage years, we were sparring full contact with no gear in a room the size of this, and so for me it was like dealing with someone coming at me. It's like, oh, we're doing this again. I'm gonna get great. I'm gonna have bruises. I'm gonna have this. I'm like, great. I gotta deal with this shit again. That's how it is to me. It's like, fuck, I'm tired. So that level of not giving a shit is the first level of being able to do all this stuff. And you can get that by having training partners put pressure on you. Because you're going to notice that if someone goes to hug you, or you're going to, internally, there's a small contraction. There's a small tension. And in order for you to have like the real Tai Chi, you have to be able to turn that off. That's the big secret. You don't need to not lift weights. You don't need, this is nonsense. You need to learn how to take control of the body. And if you're telling me that you can't lift weights and do Tai Chi, because no, that means that you're too lazy to learn the mechanisms. Okay? So learn to go from soft to completely hard to completely soft. If you're just wasting your line because you're lazy. Okay, so I hope this brings everything to some perspective. When you're doing your yang form, traditionally people don't talk about this, but a lot of times they were taught like karate, where you would do a line drill of ward off. Now I'm just gonna double step and waiting for you to go for the camera, but you would do roll back, roll back, roll back down, up and down the floor. You can do fair lady weave shuttles up and down the floor, right? So what you can do is also isolate any part of the form and do it as a standing drill. Now, I learned this from karate, so when I started doing Tai Chi when I was about 16, I already had that embedded in me. So for me, sitting in this for a half hour was just like, oh, this is normal because it's what we do. You know what I mean? It's just what we did. So, like my teacher, he would have the class go into a reverse punch, and he would leave and go to the store, and he would come back and he would check to see if you moved by the sweat stain on the floor, and if your feet had the proper sweat stain. So, so for my, to me, it's like the standing idea, it's just, this is what you do. But yeah, anything that you're using in your yang style can become a standing posture drill, and it should. Please remember that if you're doing a move, why are you doing it? So I'll do an open variation of fair lady weave shuttles, right? So you're here, basically a high block and a palm strike of some kind, okay? That's the point. What are you doing? Like when you do the setup for this, do you see an opponent? Do you know what it feels like to have an opponent put pressure on you? All right? Now, thank God that not everybody had to have violence in their life. So, but the problem with that is that you don't understand when someone really doesn't give a shit. All the training goes out the window. Because somebody who's just aggressive and just wants to hurt you, it basically adds up to 10 years of training. Someone who has really bad intentions automatically has a 10-year black belt. Okay? That's how you have to think of it. Because that violence and that insanity will bring up this genetic memory of fighting and warfare. So you gotta be realistic about that and understand. Someone's trying to hurt me. So when you do these postures and you're thinking, okay, it's like you're freeze framed in a moment of combat. Okay? Where I feel his energy here, and I'm gonna stay in that instance of that combat phase. And I'm just gonna hold that. Now I'm not tense, I'm not relaxed. I'm isolated in that expansion reflex and just stuck in the pre-birth moment of right when the contact happens and we're about to collide. Okay? So it's right before, and I stay in that moment and hold that. Okay? Then you do the breathing through there and you try to fill up, and that's where your power comes from. Now as for the standing tree pose, you can do is use actual trees. Now the tree you'll start to feel has an energy to it. There's a signature of energy to it. Now this will come in time. If you don't feel it, don't worry about it. Just keep practicing. But for fighting application, you touch this tree as light as you can and try to follow the sway from the wind. And we're talking millimeters here, okay? Now, when I first started learning Tai Chi, it was, what year was this? Now, I was already a black belt when I had the school, Chief said. So, there was another school I was working with, Avi Schneider, was he? There was another school I was renting from the school, teaching karate class, and I took some of their Tai Chi classes because they're kind of like related. And really good guys. But one of the exercises they would have is you follow the opponent, like your praying partner, and they put their hand like this and they move, and you have to stay connected with them without breaking or changing pressure. You want to try to do this with the tree. So here I'm lucky to have bamboo, and it's very pliable, so I can, once it starts to move, I can follow this energy, okay? So you can start to play with the standing posture as a more alive thing. It doesn't have to be stuck, okay? It doesn't have to be stuck, it can be fluid, because it really is. Once you get to the point where you've actually settled in, every breath you take, you feel emotion in the blood and everything in your body moving. So you start to feel not steady, okay? So don't worry about being locked, but you should be more worried about being too limp, because life isn't limp. Bamboo's not limp. You know, for instance, when you learn to bow and karate, the idea was to mimic how a blade of wheat, the tip of the wheat falls in the wind, right? To humble yourself to the wind, okay? That's how you should practice a standing posture. It should be structured enough that it's solid, but pliable enough that it bends to the flow of your blood and muscle contractions that feel that they have to happen, okay? So I hope this helps you guys. Happy Mom's Day, everybody, and see you soon.